Mandy, good afternoon, honorable members and colleagues. Mandy, can you flight the agenda?
Yes, Chairperson, it's flighted.
Once more, good afternoon, honorable members, and good afternoon to the Deputy Minister, Honorable Seiso Mohai, all DDGs in the platform and colleagues. We can start with our meeting, and there is an agenda before us, honorable members. There is an agenda before us. Honorable members and colleagues, let me extend a warm welcome to all of you to this meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. Today, honorable members, we gather to consider the department's 2024-2025 annual report and the audited financial statements, as well as the tabling of the first and the second quarter performance and expenditure reports for 2025-2026 financial year. And yesterday, honorable members and colleagues, we have listened carefully to the presentation by the Auditor General's Office on the departmental audit outcomes for 2024 and 2025, with key findings and clear recommendations for implementation. And today we look forward to scrutinizing the department's performance, the financial management, and the progress towards achieving its objectives. And as we review this department's annual report and the audited financial statements, we'll be paying close attention to the lessons learned and the best practices that can inform future planning and implementation. And we also, honorable members, looking forward to hearing about the department's plans and priorities for the remainder of the financial year and beyond. Honorable members, allow me now to take apologies, and also we also adopt the agenda. We have apologies before us. One, the apology of Honorable Trolip attending to the JSE interviews. There's also an apology of Honorable Megan Chauke on medical leave. There's also the apology of Honorable Montana attending to the Portfolio Committee on Transport. There's also the apology of Honorable Minister Marupin Ramokgopa, who is out of the country. Honorable members, those are the apologies, and that must be noted by the Portfolio Committee. And we are taking now the hands to adopt the agenda of today's meeting. I'm taking hands, honorable members. There's a hand of Honorable Apiri, and also Honorable Mani agrees to the agenda. Honorable Apiri?
I propose for the adoption, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Apiri, and we have been seconded by Honorable Zwake Mani. Now, honorable members, I'm inviting the deputy. Sorry, Zwadele Mani, Honorable Zwadele Mani. Sorry, I'm then inviting Honorable Deputy Minister.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. And I will follow your example so that I don't disturb my connectivity here. Good afternoon to you, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, as well as all honorable members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present the department annual report for 2024-25 financial year, as well as tabling the audited financial statement. The audited financial statements and its first and second quarterly performance expenditure reports for 2025 and 26 financial years. Before getting down to business, Chair, you correctly indicated that the minister is not joining this meeting because of engagement in the G7 Development Ministers meeting, which started yesterday. So thank you for acknowledging that. Chairperson and honorable members, this presentation reflects our ongoing commitment in advancing and realizing South Africa's developmental goals as outlined in the National Development Plan 2030 and the medium-term strategic development plan, the recent MTDP, which was widely shared both in Parliament and in even other forums. DPME has made commendable progress in fulfilling its mandate of planning, monitoring and evaluation. For the year 2024-25 financial year, we achieved 85% of our annual targets, with notable success in producing critical reports such as NDP monitoring progress report, research and compendiums and stakeholder engagement reports. These outputs are vital in guiding evidence-based decision-making and ensuring alignment with our developmental priorities. In the first 2 quarters of 2025-26 financial year, we maintained steady progress, achieving about 85% of our targets in Q1 and 83% in the second quarter. Key achievements include the issuance of quarterly performance reporting guidelines, production of MTDP monitoring reports, and the development of frameworks to strengthen planning and monitoring process across government. However, honorable members, we must acknowledge the challenges that continue to hinder our ability to fully deliver on our mandate. Inadequate capacity, both in terms of personnel and budget, remains a significant constraint. This is due to delays in recruitment processes compounded by cost containment measures. Despite these challenges, the department has demonstrated prudent financial management, achieving 96% expenditure of the allocated budget for 2024-25, an improvement from the previous year. We have also implemented measures to address underspending, including reprioritizing funds and developing an audit action plan to strengthen financial controls. As we move forward, our focus will be on addressing capacity constraints, deal with the recruitment long process, and ensure that our budget is aligned with our strategic priorities. We will continue to strengthen our monitoring frameworks, enhance stakeholder engagement, and support the implementation of MTDP to drive inclusive growth and improved delivery. And then to conclude, Chair, we always find it very useful to engage with the Portfolio Committee, and we remain committed to working collaboratively with the committee and really ensure that the committee and other stakeholders to build capable state and achieve the vision of NDP 2030. We can say we come out of the engagement with the committee much better in order to can deal in a very direct way many of the issues that will help us to attend to the weaknesses within our department. We thank you, Chairperson. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make these few remarks. And the department acting DG will lead in the presentation. Advocate Makube. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DM. Chairperson, can I proceed?
Yes, Acting DG, you can proceed and you are also welcome. I did not see you in the platform.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon to you and the honorable members. I'm joined by the DDGs and acting DDGs in the department, which I will not introduce. They will come in during the time of questions, and as well as the CFO. In terms of our presentation, we will restate our mandate as the DPME, our core functions, what is our vision, missions, and value, the strategic plan, impact statement, and the outcomes thereof, our annual organizational performance, and the detailed performance per program. We'll also look, as you requested, on the Q1 and Q2 performance report. In terms of our mandate, we were established in terms of the Proclamation 47 as a department that is responsible for planning, monitoring, and evaluation. And with regard to planning, we are responsible for the institutionalization of planning, and that takes place in two dimensions, which is the long-term planning through the National Development Plan that effectively charts the country's developmental trajectory. We are also responsible for medium-term planning through coordination and oversight of 5-year strategic plans and annual institutional plans. Honorable members, we also monitor the implementation of the medium-term development plan and the national development plan. And we do so by developing monitoring systems that are backed by evidence. We are actually developing a dashboard to monitor the MTDP and NDP so that we take advantage of the advent of technology. Honorable members, we also evaluate critical government programs to inform planning, monitoring, and government interventions, as well as budget prioritization. There are also certain interventions that we make on behalf of Cabinet and the President through the interministerial committees, and that really is on planned and unplanned events, such as natural disasters, and also certain challenges that we identify from the planning, monitoring, and evaluation processes. And as we had discussed with you, honorable members, there is a need to develop legislation to entrench our mandate of planning, monitoring, and evaluation. And I will explain later in terms of the process that we intend to follow in terms of developing that particular legislation. This is just to indicate our 3 core functions, which I will not get into, as I already explained in the previous slide. In terms of our vision, we would like to be a leader, but importantly, a catalyst for the country's development goals. And our mission is to coordinate and develop evidence-based planning, monitoring, and evaluation of the developmental outcomes and impact. In terms of the value that we subscribe to, is that we are client-focused, we are a learning organization, we are also accountable and transparent, but most importantly, we are an ethical organization. Those are the values that we ascribe to. In terms of our strategic plan 2025-2030, there are certain things that we would like to achieve in line with that strategic plan. Number 1, an improvement in the government-wide planning. I'll go into the details when I speak about the programs responsible for planning. But also the department also provides regular monitoring progress towards the NDP and MTDP targets, and also produce reports to inform stakeholders. We also improve utilization rate of evidence in planning, implementation, and monitoring of government's priorities. Stakeholder engagement is quite important for us, especially in the development and refinement of our developmental goals as espoused in the NDP and MTDP. With regard to our annual organizational performance, we have achieved 85% of our targets, and 15% of our targets were not achieved. In terms of the targets per program, as you can see in program 1, 3 targets were not achieved. Program 2B, 1 target was not achieved. Program 3, 2 targets were not achieved. And I'll go into the details in terms of those that were achieved and those that were not achieved. In terms of our programs, we've got program 1, which is administration. And the purpose of this program is to provide strategic leadership to the department. It also provides management and support services to the department. With regard to the targets of program 1, there were 5 total targets, 2 were achieved, and 3 were not achieved. We have an annual target, which is the first one there, of having an unqualified audit outcome. The ideal is a clean audit, but the target that we had put there was an unqualified audit outcome. We have achieved an unqualified audit outcome, but we had findings on performance information, wherein the targets were not related to the indicators. But I must indicate, honorable members, that the targets were met. And as we move forward, we will place more attention on ensuring that the accuracy and the quality of our performance information is good. And we've actually agreed with the Auditor General, because that's what they normally do, to look at our APP and our targets to ensure those targets are very smart. And if it had not been for this, we will be presenting before you a clean audit. And it is indeed a sore point from us as a department responsible for the performance of government. But we will indeed improve, and we do make that commitment that this will not happen again in this financial year. The second issue, especially in administration, and the target that we have not met, is on the 100% compliance in submission of financial interest by designated employees. And of course, this is important that it be done within the specified timeframes. On SMS, we are pleased to report that there was 100% compliance that was achieved. But however, on level 9 and 10, it was 79% of achievement, but it increased to 90% at the end of the financial year. In order to ensure that there is consequences management, disciplinary measures against the 5 assistant directors who failed to submit their financial declarations are in progress. And this is quite important, as we would like to build an ethical organization. And one of the ways in order to build that is to ensure that there is indeed a declaration of financial interest. The third target that was not met by this particular program, it was on the issue of the vacancy rate. Our annual target was to maintain a vacancy rate of 10% or less annually, ideally 0. But the vacancy rate for the year was 14.9%. I must indicate, honorable members, that we are in the process of filling the vacancies. We have actually advertised 11 of the vacancies, 10 of which will be advertised this particular Friday, because it's very important that we have the necessary capacity and capability to be able to do the work that we have to do. So we are paying special attention to that, and as well as we will be advertising the post of the DDGs and as well as the post of the DG, because the stability at executive management is quite critical to the optimal running of the organization. So we are paying special attention to that particular matter. And I know for a fact that the honorable members have raised this point, that we indeed need to fill the vacancies. And as I said, 22 posts are advertised, and the executive management ones will be advertised. In terms of the turnaround times for the payment of suppliers, we are pleased to report that all valid invoices were paid within 30 days from the date of receipt. And I must say, the finance team is doing very well in this regard. With regard to our percentage spent on procurement on women, youth, and people with disabilities, we have actually met our targets in that regard. This is just the highlight of the achievements. I've gone into detail as I was presenting on the slide. Now, on program 2 is national planning. We'll start with the National Planning Commission Secretariat, which is responsible for the long-term development planning, which is the National Development Plan. They also monitor implementation of the National Development Plan and also mobilize the country to support the plan. Then we've got the National Planning Coordination, which is responsible for the development, coordination, and the institutionalization of an integrated government planning system. I'll get into the details in terms of what that means. With regard to the National Planning Commission Secretariat, it was a total of 4 targets, and we are pleased to report that all the 4 targets were achieved. The 2024 NDP Indicators and Target Report was finalized, and this report actually provides a comprehensive analysis of progress towards realizing the NDP vision. And we have presented to this committee in terms of where we are in realizing the visions of the NDP. And it's not a good picture, as we had indicated previously. Moving to some of the achievements of the National Planning Commission Secretariat, the annual report on the work of the National Planning Commission was finalized, and this report effectively is a comprehensive overview of the work of the National Planning Commission between April 2023 and March 2024, so that there's accountability and we know what the Commission is doing. Stakeholder engagement in the Commission is quite critical as we move towards citizen-based planning, and the report was produced, and this report really demonstrates efforts of bringing together stakeholders to support the NDP. These are the 3 work streams of the National Planning Commission: economic development, enhancing quality of life, and active citizenry and capable state. These are the highlights of the achievement, which I've gone into detail which I will not go into detail now. Moving to the National Planning Coordination, there was a total of 9 targets. 8 targets were achieved, and 1 target was not achieved. There were 2 reports that were produced. One report was on the resource consideration relating to the draft MTDP, but there was also a report on the alignment between the MTDP and MTBES. The purpose of this output is to support alignment of national planning and budgetary processes. So that alignment between budgetary processes and planning priorities are quite important so that they are in sync and they speak to each other. So that work we do within the department. One of the issues that, or the matters that we have actually successfully achieved was that the strategic plans and annual performance plans of national and provincial institutions were assessed, and feedback was given to make sure that those plans align with the plans of the country and the priorities of the administration, but importantly as well as the NDP. So we give them feedback and feedback on time to make sure that those targets speaks to those priorities. And in addition, plans from 5 national institutions were also assessed. PP target of issuing the guidelines for national and provincial quarterly reporting was finalized, and this, honorable members, is to guide the setting of quarterly targets so that we are ensuring, as I indicated, that those targets are in line with the priorities of government. Coming to the issue of the bill that was developed was called the Development Planning Bill. And this bill was only dealing with one aspect of our mandate, which was planning. It was not dealing with monitoring, and it was not dealing with evaluation. So it was really not addressing the totality of our mandate. And that was really a shortcoming with that particular legislation. But secondly, there were not enough provisions to give legal teeth to the department, which is quite important in the work we do. There is a plethora of recommendations that we make, but we need legal teeth so that we are able to enforce and come with innovative ways of ensuring that there is indeed consequences management. But as it stands now, because we are only established in terms of the proclamation, we are limited in terms of that particular process. And we have learned over the years, and especially also with the planning bill, that if you don't have a strong policy basis for a legislation, you are likely not to be able to achieve, firstly, for the people to understand and the stakeholders to understand what you're trying to achieve. Because you go straight into the legislation, but there is no policy basis. And it is on that basis that we are recommending, honorable members, that we start with the white paper, so that we are clear in terms of our policy basis, what we would like to achieve. And once we have agreed on policy, it becomes very easy. As a legislative drafter, I understand that once the policy is there, drafting legislation becomes very easy because it's just a translation of policy into legislation. So we will start with the white paper, which we intend. Of course, there is a process. Once the white paper is developed, there must be a consultative process for all the stakeholders. And in the next financial year, we intend to take that particular white paper to Parliament. And of course, as part of the process, because we understand how urgent this matter is, as we develop that particular white paper, we will develop what is called an indicative bill. What is an indicative bill? An indicative bill is to show you, is to develop the white paper. How will that white paper translate into legislation? So I just wanted to really go into the detail in terms of that, but also to buttress the point that the policy basis for the legislation and the consultative process for public comments is quite critical, so that we also take some of the comments from the stakeholder. Moving right along, I will talk about some of the achievements in the national planning coordination. There was a framework for specialization of institutional planning that was developed. And most importantly, we have developed and launched what is called the DPME, Geospatial Information Management Strategy. We have also developed a dashboard, and in the last meeting, we had actually showed the honorable members the capability of that particular dashboard. We are still in the process of developing it and making sure that the final details are there. But it will actually even show you in terms of where the government projects are, the percentages of them, where there are red areas, it will show you, so that you go there for on-site supervision and check where the bottlenecks are, and those particular bottlenecks are removed. So these GIMS, we call it GIMS, because it's Geospatial Information Management strategy, will ensure that we have a data-driven decision-making. Something very exciting, and I think once it's fully developed, we would like to present it to this August House. I think the next slide is the highlights of the achievements which I have spoken to. The sector monitoring services, the purpose of this branch is to monitor government performance against the priorities of government, the 3 priorities of the NTBP. It was 7 of the MTBPS. It also monitors intervention strategies towards achievement of intended result as it articulated in the NTDP. In terms of targets, there were 10 targets, 8 of which were achieved and 2 of which were not achieved. There are monitoring reports that this particular program develops, and it's really the reports on the implementation of the government priorities outlined in the medium-term development plan. So those review reports were actually produced by this particular unit. Not only are we ensuring that in terms of planning, the priorities of governments are taken care of, but we also monitor through the monitoring reports. There was a pilot master plan monitoring dashboard which was developed, and a report on the impact of the master plan based on data collected during the pilot phase was produced. And you may be hearing me speaking about a lot of dashboards. There is indeed a plethora of dashboards that we are doing. One, to ensure that we monitor the implementation of the MTDP. Two, to make sure that we monitor the NDP and the implementation thereof. The other one is on geospatial, but fourthly on the other one, fourthly is on the monitoring of government performance. But we will integrate this dashboard so that by the click of a button, you are able to see where we are in terms of government performance, where we are in terms of the NDP, where we are in terms of the MTDP, so that we have our fingers on the pulse, so that we are not reactive, but we are proactive as we take advantage of the advent of technology. This branch also did a lot of work on the G20 as our minister and our DM leads the development working group. They ensured that the necessary declarations that needed to be made were made, and that there was quite a lot of work and a lot of negotiations that went into this particular process. With regard to the target that was not achieved, there was an annual target of a government-wide intervention strategy, which was supposed to be developed and piloted. But the intention effectively was to finalize the strategy and have it piloted in the 2025 and 2026 financial year. But from the APP, there was an error because we had indicated that we will develop it and as well as pilot it in the financial year 2024-2025. And as a result of capacity constraint, this was put on hold. But now that we are advertising, we are going to be proceeding with this particular project because we will have the necessary capacity that we need to be able to do this work. The operational Pagisa electronic monitoring and reporting system was not developed due to procurement insufficient budget, because the proposals that were received were above the available budget of 1.1 million. But later in the year, in December, additional fundings were secured, and the project will start in the new financial year, and we'll rename it the MTDP electronic monitoring and reporting system. I went into the detail in terms of the dashboards that we are developing in that regard. This is just the highlights of the achievement. I've gone into the details of that. And then program 4 is public sector monitoring and capacity development. And the purpose of this particular branch is to support the implementation of the TDP, and they monitor to ensure that there is a monitoring and improvement of the capacity of state institutions to develop and implement plans and provide services. It is in line with the priorities of the MTDP, which is to build a developmental, ethical, and capable states. This is quite critical. There were 7 total targets, 7 of which were achieved. So it was 7 out of 7. There were 2 status reports on the performance agreement signed and assessed in the implementation of the Heads of Department Performance Management Development System. And we note the finding of the AG on the fact that the acting HODs and DGs performance agreements are not mandatory. It's an issue that we would look at. For example, as an acting DG now, I have to make sure that I conclude my performance agreement so that I'm held accountable in terms of the work that I do. So it's something that we are taking into consideration, and we will correct as we move forward. With regard to the state-owned enterprises, we did what is called a self-assessment toolkit, which we launched. And this toolkit, which is a self-assessment, will submit it to the government departments that are responsible for the shareholder oversight of the SOEs, as well as the SOEs. 48 of the SOEs participated in that particular process, and there is a report that was produced. And that report, honorable members, indicates that the reforms of SOEs are inevitable. It is very inevitable that we have to reform our SOEs. It's something that we need to be intentional about. The genesis of SOE reforms started in 2010, but there has not been considerable progress in terms of reforms of these particular entities, which really, if they are reformed, can be a catalyst for economic growth and development. Also, the governance of the SOE is an issue that came out of this particular assessment of the report, to say we've got to pay special attention to the governance of SOEs. And in that regard, we are, as we are waiting for the progression of the National State Enterprises Bill, developing two important frameworks, which is the guide for the appointment of board members, but two, the remuneration guidelines for SOEs. The branch also monitored key services delivery sites, including educational facilities, healthcare centers, and disaster relief initiatives, so that we go to the ground and have our fingers on the pulse. Not only are we just producing reports in our offices in Hartfield, but we go to the ground so that when we produce these reports, they are a product of what we have seen from the ground. So that is a very, very important aspect of this particular program. There is also a status report on the presidential hotline performance, which was produced. This is really to ensure that whatever the public members are complaining about are addressed. And it's an issue that we are going to actually even move to the monthly reports, so that we can show the people of South Africa that what they are complaining about are taken seriously, but most importantly, that all those government departments are addressing what the citizens are raising. So it's an issue that we are taking very seriously as a department. The issues of the anti-corruption efforts is an issue that is within our radar as a department, including the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, which we're involved in, but also on the SIE recommendations tracking system. We are working with the presidency in that regard to make sure that those recommendations are implemented, but also more importantly, that the implementation of the State Capture Commission reports recommendations is done, as well as the reforms that were proposed by the State Capture Commission reports are implemented. So that kind of work we are doing as well within the department. The last branch, I think it is the last branch, program 5, which is evaluations and evidence and knowledge system. And the purpose of the branch is really to coordinate and support the generation, collation, accessibility, and timely use of quality evidence. As we said, our work is evidence-based. It's not thumb-stacked. It's evidence-based to support performance monitoring and evaluation across government. So that when we say you have not done this and you have done this, it's evidence-based and you can't argue with it. And we can take then the AXA or the AG stance to say, you know, this is our report and we stand by it because we know it's evidence-based. So this program is quite important in that regard. There's 5 total targets, and 5 of which were achieved. So all of them were achieved. The evidence plan was produced, and this plan, honorable members, outlines key priorities for research, evaluation, and data initiatives. So this is a data-driven program, and we are making sure that we capacitate it with the necessary skills to be able to have the data analysts so that we rely on very credible and reliable data. The development indicators report, which we, I think a few months ago, presented to this honorable committee, provides an evaluation of South Africa's development trajectory and the impact of public policy. That particular DI indicators report was finalized and, as I say, presented to this particular portfolio committee. There were 2 key evaluations that were completed. The first evaluation is on the design and implementation evaluation of the priority human settlement and housing development areas, which was done in collaboration with the Department of Human Settlement. It covered all the 9 provinces, as well as 8 metropolitan municipalities. Quite a lot of work was done in that regard. And the second one is the rapid evaluation of the 16 days campaign for no violence against women and children, which was completed in partnership with the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. And in that regard, there were improvement plans that were developed during the end of the financial year. And this is where, honorable member, we also need legal teeth. Because once we make these evaluations and we say these are the improvement plans that needs to be developed, we need the legal team to be able to make sure, one, that those improvement plans are developed on time so that we can make a difference, but two, that there is implementation in that regard. So it's an issue that we will also address as we develop the legislation for the department. I'll pause and ask the CFO to take us through the audit outcome. As I said, if it was not for the performance information, I will be happily presenting to you a clean audit. Over to you, CFO.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, the honorable members, the DM, and the colleagues. Can we move the slide to slide 5, the next slide? We're reporting on the 2024-25 audit outcome. The department received an unqualified audit opinion without material findings on financial management. However, there were findings on performance information. There were 2 findings, and these were due to 2 indicators and targets which were not well defined and therefore could not be measured or measurable. There was full compliance with payments of invoices within 30 days. All the invoices, valid invoices that were received by the department, were paid on an average of about 10 working days. Also, the department achieved no irregular expenditure that in the current in the year under review. However, we had a slight regression on fruitless and wasteful expenditure that was reported compared to the 2023-24 financial year. In the 2023-24 financial year, we had 22,000 that was reported, but in 2024-25, we reported 61,000, which was an increase of 39,000. As a department, we have developed an audit action plan, which we are implementing to address the audit findings so that we don't have repeat findings, as well as the regression on some areas of control. In the next slide, we are demonstrating the financial performance in terms of the budget that was allocated to the department and how much was spent of that budget. The department was allocated a budget of 450 million, of which then the presentation is demonstrating the allocation per each program, but I won't go through that. The actual expenditure of that budget of 450 million was 429 million. The underspending was 20.3 million. The spending, if it's translated into a percentage, it was 95.5%. Compared to the previous financial year, we had an improvement of 2%, because in the previous financial year, our percentage spending was 93.98%. The underspending was less than 5% of the budget allocation. The next slide, per economic classification, we explaining the spending per economic classification. In terms of the economic classification, compensation of employees, we were allocated 324 million. We spent 309, and the underspending was 14 million. In terms of percentage, the percentage spent, that was 95.4, but it was a slight regression compared to the previous financial year. In terms of goods and services, which drives the APP, we were allocated 119 million and we spent 116 million. We were left with 3.5 million. And in percentage terms, the spending was 97%, which is on par with the budget allocation. For transfers and subsidies, we spent 97.2%. Payment for capital assets were allocated 3.1 million. We spent 1.3 million, and the variance was 1.8. million, being the expenditure, the percentage spent was 42.6%. This was a regression compared to the previous financial year. And the reason for that was the delayed relocation of the department to new buildings. For payment for financial assets, we spent 97.1%. Can we go to the next slide, where we are explaining the reasons for underspending? The reasons for underspending, the 14.8 million in compensation of employees, which is 4.6%, was due to vacant posts which could not be filled before the end of 2024-25. Payment for capital assets, the underspending of 1.8 was as a result of postponed procurement of office furniture for the new office accommodation, which we had planned to relocate to. In terms of dealing with remedial plans, action to address the issue of underspending in compensation of employees, the department is in the process of filling critical vacant posts to address the capacity and also the underspending on COE. We are continuously monitoring spending and ensuring that we reprioritize the budget where there are areas of not spending to areas where there are where there's inadequate budgeting. Thank you.
Thank you, CFO. We'll then go to the summary of the Q1 and Q2 performance and financial reports as requested. With regard to Q1 organizational performance, we have achieved 85% of our targets, and 15% of our targets were not achieved. The highlights of the achievements are the National Planning Commission annual report of 2024-2025, which was produced, which is the overview of the work of the Commission during that particular period. The quarterly performance reporting guidelines were issued to the national departments and the offices of the Premier. And these guidelines really are instructions on the completion of the quarterly performance reports. The biannual report measuring progress against the NTD priorities were submitted to the cabinet committees. And the consolidated report of the presidential hotline performance was also produced. I explain how we would like to deal with this going forward. With regard to the targets that were not achieved, the first one was on the vacancies. I've gone at length to indicate the progress that we are making in that regard. And the second target was related to the MTDP monitoring report, which was not achieved because there was a delayed approval of the NTDP in February 2025, but the report was presented to Cabinet in the second quarter. With regard to the second quarter, there was a bit of regression. We achieved 83% of our targets, and 17% of our targets were not achieved. Highlights of some of the achievements: the stakeholder engagements report of the NPC was produced. We also did a budget prioritization framework, which actually provides a clear and systematic approach to resource allocation to make sure that the resource allocation is guided by national priorities and is also based on evidence that was developed. This is quite a very important piece of work that we have done. And the status report on the filling of performance agreements of heads of department, office of the Premier, was developed, and I indicated that we take the recommendations and funding of AXA in that regard. And the progress report with regard to evaluation, research and development indicators was finalized in order to track implementation. Was not achieved in this particular quarter is the vacancy rate, which was above the APP target, but I've gone into the details in terms of that. And there was only 77% of the submission of the financial interest. And it was because the system was prematurely closed on the 29th instead of the 31st of July, because there was a cyber attack on the system. So the employees were not able to submit their financial disclosures in that regard. But we had said this is a very important aspect to ensure an ethical organization. In terms of program 3, 2 targets were not achieved. The percentage on the required briefing notes on the cabinet memorandum, it was 94 instead of 100%. And a monitoring report on rural infrastructure development, land reforms, and rural economic development was produced but not approved because the approval was not within the reporting period, but it was finalized in the next quarter. I think CFO will run us through the last presentations on the financial performance of the quarters.
Thank you, ATG. I would like to indicate to the committee that this slide, there was a change, an amendment, because we noted that there was an error on quarter 2 under program 3 under the variance. The variance was supposed to be a negative figure, being negative 14,416,000, that is overspending, but we made a mistake. We made it. We reflected it as if it's an underspending. That then also is showing under slide number 63. And whilst on that, I would request that I focus more on quarter 2 financial performance, because it is the cumulative of expenditure from April up to the end of September. However, in terms of the department was allocated a budget allocation of 509 million. And out of the 509 million, we had anticipated or requested drawings from Treasury of 119 million in quarter 1, and in quarter 2, 248 million. In terms of spending, in quarter 1, we spent 89% of the budget that was requested. In quarter 2, out of the 248 million, we spent 247 million, which was 99% of the budget that was projected, and we underspent by 655,000. I will not go through a allocation of each program. However, I'll focus on the economic classification. In terms of the economic classification, the department was allocated 371 million on compensation of employees. In quarter 2, we had anticipated that we would have spent 185 million. However, we spent 167 million, which left us with an underspending or a variance of 17 million. Under goods and services, the annual allocation was 134 million. And in terms of projections, what we had planned to have paid, we had planned that we would have paid 62 million, used 62 million. However, we ended up using 78 million, which resulted into an overspending of 16 million. Under transfers and subsidies, we spent 315,000 due to colleagues that had exited the system, resigned, and we had to pay leave gratuity. Under capital assets, we were allocated 2.8 million. We had planned that from January up to September, we would have spent 716,000. However, we ended up spending 1.3 million, which then gives us overspending of 586. Slide 63, I won't go through that. It is the depiction of the table that we have gone through, and then also in terms of program, and then slide 64, it's also in terms of economic classification, which we've already covered. On slide 65, we're explaining the reasons for underspending. Can we move the slides, the presentation to slides? Thank you. The underspending on compensation of employees, as I had indicated that we had planned that we would have spent 185. However, we ended up spending less, which gave us a net underspending of 17 million. The 17 million was due to vacant funded posts, which then are now at different stages of recruitment, as the ADG had indicated. That underspending was utilized to augment overspending on goods and services, to defray the overspending that was on goods and services of 16 million. This was done in line with Section 43 of the PFMA, subsection 1 and subsection 2, to cover the overspending, which the accounting officer is allowed to do. In goods and services, as indicated, we had planned 62 million, but we actually spent 78 million, which then gave us a net overspending, which had to be offset by the savings on COE. The reason for underspending in goods and services, it was the meetings for the development working group for G20. The department was not allocated adequate funding for hosting of the G20 meeting. So we should look within the department as to how best can we reprioritize and find funds to fund the G20, the hosting of the G20, which was then used from savings of COE. Payment for capital assets, the overspending was as a result of photocopier machines which were transferred from DPE, and they were brought to the department, as the department is responsible for the winding up of DPE. The budget for the machines was allocated by Treasury. However, at the time when we were doing the projections, we did not include the payment for the photocopier machines because we were not aware that we would be getting those photocopier machines instead of them being transferred to receiving departments. So the funds are there. It's just a question of reprioritizing or and ensuring that we close the overspending, and then we reproject from October up to the end of financial year to ensure that we don't reflect the overspending monthly. But that will also depend on when Treasury opens up the period for readjusting the projections. I think that is about it in terms of financial performance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CFO. Honorable Chairperson and members, I would just like to close off by saying we are focusing on the issues that you have been raising over the years. And as we are an evidence-based department, you will see the evidence of that in our APP when we come and table it before this committee. The first issue is the issue of the legislation for DPME. You have raised these issues or this issue over the years, and we are focusing on it, and we are busy with the white paper. The issue of the dashboard, that let's have a robot system so that we are not reactive in our approach and proactive. We are really going full steam to make sure that we develop those dashboards to take advantage of the advent of technology. You have raised the issues of linking budgeting to national priorities is an issue. You saw the framework that we are developing in that regard. You have also raised the issue number 4 of our relationship with the Auditor General and how we leverage that relationship in the work we do. I have actually an engagement with the AG in the next weeks to be able to see how we can leverage our relationship. You have also raised, fifthly, the issue on our work on local government and municipalities in conjunction with COPTA. That is an issue of interest and attention from our side. You have raised the issue of the filling of vacancies, and I have indicated that we have begun to advertise and will be filling the vacancies so that we have stability in the department. And you have also asked whether our structure is aligned to our mandate, and we are in the process of reviewing our organizational structure to make sure that it takes into consideration the current realities. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, Honorable Chairperson, and honorable members.
Thank you very much to yourself, acting DG, and also to the CFO. Honorable members, we have heard the presentations from the department, and also importantly the opening remarks of the Deputy Minister. I see now there's hands already from Honorable Dunjwa, and followed by Honorable Manyi. Honorable Dunjwa.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Technology. So good afternoon to you, Chair, members of the committee, the Deputy Minister, the staff, the acting DG, and the team. And we, in appreciating the report, Chair, there's one matter that I would like to advise. I don't want to say to caution. If there is a change in a presentation, I would appreciate acting DG if whoever have interact with the chair, at least the chair also be aware that there has then been whether a mistake or a change in a particular slide. I want to make that humble a request, Chair, as it was just said by the presenter. My questions, Chair, are going to be, yesterday we had that's where I would like to start. Yesterday we had a presentation. We had a Deputy Minister. AG came to present, and they are to the committee. Then there are issues that were a bit challenging. I think we raised this thing, Yokuti, and I think the chair did raise that when she opened this thing, that it was more, we don't have a department called public enterprise anymore. Well, they did explain why they have to do that, because it was because of the vote. They were more dealing about the vote of I think 2023, 2024, the budget vote. But it was quite one of those sore points to us. But coming to the AG's finding, you have regressed in the quality of performance information. And two of your targeted in the annual performance did not relate to the indicators. The lack of accountability, it is quite disturbing that we are still having acting DGs and acting HODs, when in fact the question we asked was that how many months, just to be I don't want to say to be reminded, actor for how long, DG? And we were told that they are acting for 6 months. But there are still those that are still acting more than that. And in that TM, I said, I'm not going to say which department and which province which provinces, that they are still managers and DGs that are managers that are acting for almost 10 years. And that is a recipe for whatever disaster, because if a person is acting, accountability is not his or her priority. And again, the TPME is unable to enforce the implementation of its recommendations. It goes back to this thing of accountability. They are other directors, as much as there are disciplinary processes that are in place that have not disclosed. I think now we must not act GM as if it's business as usual. You know, the late T.G. Makwetu said there are times that you must really go where eagles dare, and those people must be exposed. We can't have directors that are refusing to disclose. Why? And in that, in your presentation, which I think is in page 12, there is one that resigned and has not disclosed. To me, as a public representative, and I think to all of us, that is quite disturbing. And on the transfer of department, of the transfer of Department of Public Enterprise functions, a lack of proper planning. If as a department which is dealing with monitoring and evaluation, planning should be key. How do we expect then a department to plan when Nina, you are lacking in terms of proper learning and coordination? Then with regards to the transfer of those functions, yes, but for me, I take it further. Because you are to ensure that the departments are planning properly. I've got a question, Chair, which I don't know. I think I missed it in yesterday's interaction with EH. How, I'm asking now the department, how many portfolio committees are inviting you? And please name them. And how many of those, out of your observation as monitoring and evaluation, that there is something that is not right? Which are those? Do you invite them? And do they come? If they don't come, do they give reasons? Because we must have, this is a department, chair, that is to ensure that every department is implementing APPs zayo, and if they can't meet targets zabo, they have got irresponsibility of ukuthi basically they must take us into confidence, not for the benefit yet to only, not for the benefit of portfolio committees or ourselves, but for the benefit of everybody who lives in South Africa. Must remember, Chair, that imali elapha ebuhulumendeni imali ephuma kwi-taxpayers, and therefore everything. We must not so too when there are protests, if I can make an example. So too when there is an interview by a stakeholder. So too when there is an issue raised by whatever political party, but this department, at some point, our work, we must rise above our party political interest, but it must be for the interest of the people of South Africa. I think yesterday one of the members did raise those. So for me, I want to concentrate on that, and in when I chair, I do understand that this department, it also concerned TM, is that you don't have truth. But it is my understanding, and I'm subject to correction, that things are to go to the cabinet, and it is in the cabinet when the president is then to say, Maba account, why this? Maybe because you don't have, there's no legislation, but fortunately there is that process of which legislation that which is going to make this committee, because it's useless to have a committee that is just I don't want to say backing, it's just talking. And nobody is taking us serious. Nobody is going to take this Nasika serious. So I wanted to focus on those, Chair, so that as the EDM who understand that it's not because we are unfair. That is why I'm laboring on this thing, that I'm aware that it toothless department and legislation, and I think not as the portfolio committee, I support in the long term, so that everybody understands. It's not about Junjwa, it's not about Mkweba, but it's about the people of South Africa who are paying a tax, including ourselves.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Dunjwa. I think your question to the department, the invite, and how the names of the, I don't think are portfolio committees. You are referring to the departments.
Oh, yes. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, so that for recording.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that correction.
No, thank you very much. Honorable Mani.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Greetings to everyone in the platform, DM and your entourage, and everybody in the platform. Greetings. Chair, you know the statement worried is an understatement. I'm very concerned, very, very, very concerned here, Chair. And I'm concerned because from the DM all the way to the presenters, I get the sense that they're upbeat about what they're doing. And we've just had a very depressing presentation by the AG just yesterday. But they are here today, they are much, much more upbeat. Now, I would have thought, Chair, you see, for instance, some of us that keep making some of these comments, one would think that we just can't appreciate anything good. But yesterday, we had an office called the AG's office, and I'm going to take you through some of the issues that the AG is saying. But I don't get the sense that this department grasps the seriousness of their mediocrity, as it were. For instance, I mean, we have a situation where this department has proudly saying they have spent 96% of their budget. We're very proud of that they've almost finished the whole thing. Yet we've got a statement from the AG that says the entire portfolio overall has regressed. I mean, how do you have a situation like this where the auditor, not money, the auditor says the entire portfolio has regressed generally, but we have people that are upbeat and they're saying we spent almost 100% of the money, but didn't do anything. I mean, the one of the things, for instance, that the AG talked to is the DPE. The winding down of that operation is chaotic. You're sitting with a qualified report there in terms of winding down operations of the DPE, but there is no pronouncement in this by this team here of now they've got the handle of it. They're not giving us any comfort that they've understood that and they're doing something about it. You know, the only organization in the platform, in the portfolio that seems to be doing better, or okay rather, it's a Brand SA. That one's got a clean audit and all of that, and we congratulate them. But DPME itself is noted by the AG as having regressed. But then you have an acting DG here, you've got a DM here, you've got a CFO here, everybody's upbeat and they're just minimizing everything else. So I'm worried about that. That's the first issue. I've got 7 issues. The second issue is the issue of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. There's a number there. At least this one is recognized by the department at 61,000. You might think 61,000 is not a lot of money, but for a department that is supposed to be inspector, every cent counts. You can't have a 61,000 that is you can't actually even have a category called fruitless and wasteful expenditure by a department such as this one. So in other words, 61,000, that's more than what MPs take home, much more. You know, you have 61,000 that has done something that there is no value for. What did that actually do? I mean, why is it that we don't even hear a voice of concern in the people that were reporting here? So I'm worried about the understanding of the crisis that this department seems to be in. That's the second point. The third point, the acting DG here says, or is it the CFO, both of them, no one corrected another. But we're sitting here with a situation where they're both like saying they're doing so well, they have no irregular expenditure. But if you go to the AG's report, go to slide 18 of the AG's report, you will find there that for the financial year 24-25, there's actually 22 million rand expenditure. It's in the AG's report, as I say, slide 18, and it's awaiting some condonation process or whatever. Now, why do we have officials here coming here and saying they have no irregular expenditure? What is that? So that's the third thing, Chair. And then the fourth thing, also in terms of irregular expenditure, the DPE, this one that is not badly being wound up. In terms of the AG's report, there's a 2.3 million rand irregular expenditure there. Of the 18 million rand irregular expenditure, of that portfolio, the DPE has got 2.3 million rand irregular expenditure. And so if there is no, who must account for this, Chair? We were told that this DPE is going to be overseen by DPME. So who must then take accountability if 2.3 million rand of DPE is reflected in the AG's report, but the officials there are very silent about it? I'm worried about this, Chair. That's the fourth thing. And then the fifth point, the acting DG talks about, when he talks about the issue of that they've heard what we're saying, and one of the things that they've heard that we're saying is the issue of putting together a bill that is going to give them the teeth. And then he says, in terms of that, he mentions a white paper that is in progress. Now, the AG yesterday told us that the white paper that is in progress is a white paper not on how this department must gain teeth. It's a white paper on how to deal with the integration of the SOEs. You know, the ones that were told that they were going to be, were told by the president that the DPE is going to be dissolved. instead of it being dissolved, it's actually renamed, and there's all kinds of creative shenanigans that are being created into a holding company and all of that. So there's a white paper that is being put together to deal with that. But the acting DG here today positions that white paper as if it's a response. We never spoke about wanting a problem about that as this committee. If anything, we rejected even the bill that came to integrate that thing, because most of us just saw it as a license to loot that whole arrangement of that consolidation. So for the acting DG to come here and say that there's a white paper in response to giving the department teeth, I think it's a very misleading thing, or maybe can that please be clarified? Otherwise, I feel like I'm being misled here. I haven't heard, in fact, this is my sixth point, I haven't heard anything about the founding bill that is going to give this department power. Haven't heard anything about that. I don't know if it didn't get to the DG. Just so you know, acting DG, I did actually forward a draft even to the minister to try and assist you guys, because I'm not getting any progress. Last time we were told that we were working on something and all of that, but nothing is coming out of the end of the tunnel. We're working on it, but nothing is happening on this thing. Which is why, Chair, I'm also worried. I mean, if you have a situation where it's, I don't know how many weeks or how many months the acting DG is in place, but his own performance agreements and is still not in place. So he's working in a vacuum. DM, how do you have a situation like this? How are you going to measure him? We're now going to December now. The year is about to wind down. We're sitting here with a political principal, with an acting accounting officer. There's nothing on the table to show how to measure the performance of the accounting officer. I mean, what is that? And both of you are not saying it will be concluded today, tomorrow. It's just some work in progress. Lastly, Chair, my expectation of what this department should be doing is, beginning of the year, you have something that's called State of the Nation Address. The presentations by this department has got to give us maybe SOGA, State of Government Address. What is happening in government? I haven't heard anything. Like 80%, if not more, of the discussion we've had today, they're just talking about themselves, about their vacancies, about this and that. The issue that Honorable Dunjwa is raising, for instance, to say, we don't want surprises and hear on TV all at the same time that Titsobotla is a mess. We're expecting this department to be on the ground and being the first to hear this, to have early warning systems. None of that is being reported here. So when things go wrong, we'll all be equally surprised all at the same time. With the department that is tasked with ensuring that they monitor. The word monitoring means have some kind of real-time measurement. But there's no expression of that. They are just busy with themselves. They are doing this. They are each issuing a report about this. They've issued a report about that. But we're sitting here. When we finish this discussion, Chair, when we finish this discussion, we will not know the state of government. And yet we're sitting here with a department that's supposed to be planning and monitoring and evaluating government performance. But when we finish this meeting, we will not be any wiser. So what's the point of having this department? This department that's supposed to be fine-tuned on efficiencies, they're sitting here, they're struggling with budget, but somehow they want to spend on G20. How is that possible? I mean, what kind of prioritization is this? If this department can't plan for its own, how can it plan? How can it assist others to be organized when itself is not organized? No, Chair, I must say, this is a very disastrous arrangement here. I'm totally unhappy. I don't think there is a meeting of minds in terms of what this department, by the way, is like over 10 years old. But when we talk about it, it's almost like it was put together yesterday. It's more than 10 years, this department, 2010, 2011, whatever, old. But every day, it's like it started yesterday. There doesn't seem to be any institutional memory in this department. There doesn't seem to be any continuity. It's like a brand new department. No, Chair, I'm totally dejected. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Manyi. Gossip Tellers, can you close your mic? I've seen your hand. Close your mic. Honorable members, as we raise questions and obvious criticize the department, we must also bring solutions because it's part of our responsibility as this portfolio committee. I then invite...
Sorry, Chair.
You've said you've got 7 questions and asked more than 7 questions.
No, just one little thing, 30 seconds. I think the departments must be told live here on this platform that the answers that they've given for the questions of the meeting of the 10th of September are very vague. I mean, a simple thing of how did you spend the 25 million in the 2 days that has been reported. There's no clear answer on this. And in all other questions, they're just very evasive, this department on everything. So I'm just putting that on the table, Chair. I know that you are writing a letter to them. I was also drafting my own letter to you, copied to them, to illustrate the weakness or inadequacy of their responses. We're not looking for responses when you ask questions. We're looking for answers, not the responses. So even that, Chair, you say we must give solutions. You can only give solution when we ask a question, you get an answer, then you know where things are. But when you ask a question and you get some weak response that has got no resemblance of addressing the question, so how do you begin to give a solution? Apologies to abuse you, Chair. Thank you.
You are abusing me, but that one is being addressed by the chair of the portfolio committee on behalf of all of you. Don't worry, Honorable Manyi. Honorable Nkumbanga.
Recording stopped.
Honorable Nkumbanga.
Recording in progress.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to yourself and all the honourable members present in the session. Chair, mine is quite short, Chair. I just have 2 questions and just 2 statements I just want to make. Firstly, in terms of questions, Chair, you know, this thing of the budget, I think we've been overemphasizing it for a long time. So I just want to check, just, you know, to check if how the department is enhancing, you know, the budget prioritization, you know, like what is the view of the department on moving towards a reporting framework which aligns performance indicators with the budget allocations. I think we've emphasized that many times in the meetings, because I think we do need to enable Parliament to link performance indicators and the budget allocations and the spending patterns, and then we'll see how efficient and how effective they're working in that regard. And then also, Chair, I want to check, you know, I think, I think just for advice, I think, you know, the department must develop a performance indicator, you know, that assesses the level of compliance with the heads of departments and the performance management development systems, and not use just reports as a basis or the report submission as an indicator for this. So I think the performance indicator, they need to find a framework or just a mechanism that they can use that's going to be practical, you know, in terms of that. And then also, I think they must also develop an indicator that measures the level of compliance of the medium-term development plan results framework with the strategic and annual plans of the department. I think those linkages are very important, Chair, in terms of us also playing our oversight role, Chair. But other than that, I think that's that from my end, Chair. Apologies for the delayed response. I've just had a bit of network issues because I'm in transit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kumbanga. Honorable Gama.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Deputy Minister, Portfolio Committee members, also the staff of the department. I've just arrived from Mars, and as I arrive from Mars, I find that there's a dramatic improvement in the work that we do. We say we have achieved 85% of the things we were supposed to achieve, and only 15% was not achieved. But when you look very closely at the issues, let me take one example, the NPC Secretariat, which is the National Planning Commission. The National Planning Commission is supposed to come up with economic development plans, to develop employment scenarios, to make interventions to catalyze township and small businesses, and also to come up with plans on investment and financing of critical infrastructure. It says everything has been done, but what has been done? What is there for us to see? There is nothing tangible that we can say we can see as a result of what is being said to us here. So I think the issues that we're trying to measure versus what is actually happening on the ground is very, very difficult for us to assess. And I think somebody already talked about this issue of the integration of the planning bill. It was intended to harmonize government planning and give the DPME enforcement powers. But this has now been placed on hold. And what is being told to us is that it's not a priority. It's going to be reprioritized. So I really don't understand, because if you say it's going to be reprioritized and we're working on a white paper, which will produce the policy prescripts, which will headline the bill itself, when will this be done? And then if you look at the MTDP, it was introduced to departments late. What that means is that for 25-26, the different government departments actually did not have the opportunity to incorporate what is in the MTDP. So when we come back to monitor and evaluate the 25-26 APPs of the different plans, you'll find that there's not much of the MTDP that has actually been breathed through into their plans, because it was late. If you go into some of the issues around the government-wide intervention support strategy, there is something interesting that is written there. It says, no, there was an error in the APP annual target and indicator descriptor that indicated that the strategy will be piloted in the reporting period under review. However, piloting of the strategy has been put on hold due to capacity constraint. This is an all-important intervention from a strategy perspective, but I think all that happens here is we come out and we just play with words instead of actually doing the real issue. So I think, as I said, somebody from Mars would actually think that if they had what was being said here, that there's a lot that has happened. But unfortunately, from what we can see, there's not much that has happened. There is a report here that says there were 2 status reports on SOEs contributing towards the MTDP. I don't know. I've not seen those reports. Which ones? Which are those SOEs that we have had an opportunity to look at? So it's and how have these been brought to us in terms of oversight? So I think there's a very real issue that we need to look at. Also on the monitoring side, especially on issues such as rural infrastructure and land reform. Those are critical, but they are not being prioritized. Everything is behind schedule. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Gama. Honorable Chauke.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Can you kindly confirm that I am audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. If I may request to keep my visuals off, because I am meant to be on medical leave, but because this was a virtual session, I felt it was very important for me to participate as well through you, Chairperson. I think I would like to appreciate the presentation. That's first and foremost. And I think I do share the same sentiments that have been expressed by my fellow colleagues in terms of the performance and the expectation of what this particular department is meant to deliver on and what we had anticipated and expected to be part of the presentation. And perhaps having a bit of a disappointment in terms of what has been reported upon. I think some of my questions then, Chairperson, I will start at the point of saying, in terms of the systems that they are utilizing now as a department, where have they seen the deficiencies and the failures, and what interventions have been put in place to rectify that? Are there any collaborations, partnerships, or services that are being provided by CETA, and have those been effective and efficient for this particular department? My second question would be then centered around systems in which the department seems not to be advancing or integrating. And one would expect that this department, with its responsibility, should have the capacity in order for it to keep track of all departments in terms of planning, monitoring, and evaluation and performance without us necessarily relying on annual reports, but they should be quarterly reports that are centralized within a digital space. What is the department's plan in terms of expanding its digital ability? My third question, Chairperson, would then come to the issue of, I think I would start by asking, perhaps if the department can clarify for me if it's compliant with the Equity Act. And I think this is something that we must always raise in all portfolio committees when we speak to departments, whether departments are in compliant with the Equity Act of ensuring that women, youth, and persons with disabilities and those who are disadvantaged are being employed within the department, and also other departments. Have we checked the compliance of this particular department? And this department has checked the compliance of other departments and municipalities? Because from my understanding, when I read as to what the terms of reference and the responsibility of this particular department is, it is for it to plan, monitor, and evaluate over all agents of government. And therefore, it means this is the central point where we should know where there is a deficiency, a failure, and a lack of compliance. So that would be my question, whether this department itself, is it complying, and which are the other departments that have been identified to not be complying in terms of the Equity Act. Chairperson, I'm also interested to find out, when we speak about irregular expenditure, now what has been put in place by the department to ensure that there is no irregular, let me not call it irregular spending, let me say underspending, because the finding was that there was no irregular spending, but there was underspending. Does this mean that perhaps there was lack of coordination and adequate planning, that we found underspending that took place within the department? If so, what are the reasons, and what are the measures that the department will then be putting in place to mitigate this going forward? My other question, Chair, would be, one is very interested, and I think Honorable Dunja and Honorable Manye also touched on this. We want in the report of this department to really have an understanding of the lived realities on the ground. What are municipalities' performance? is this department working with the municipalities, the provinces, and also national departments in ensuring that within their planning, it's in accordance with what the budgets have been allocated, that they are meeting their targets. There's a level of monitoring and assisting departments and municipalities in order for them to monitor their performance and ensure implementation. So if we're not finding this within the department, one then ask themselves, where are we then supposed to get this information? My third last input and question, Chairperson, I'd really like to applaud, the audit findings for the department, but I think it's quite unfortunate that we look at the vacancies of this particular department, and perhaps if we can get also from the DG and the Deputy Minister, how has this affected the operations of the department, having these vacant posts, and also looking at very senior managerial positions that have been vacant. We look at the DG now, who has displayed himself to be quite competent and capable of really turning the department around, who is an acting. The department should tell us how long will we have an acting DG in this post? How long do they think it would take for them to fill this vacancy? For permanently. My second to last question, Chairperson, would be centered around in terms of the MTDP and also the NDP. And I think this was asked by Honorable Kumbaka. And how is this department ensuring that all departments are aligned with those plans, and where are we currently? Are they able to report on whether we are on plan, on route, or are we finding that departments are not complying and we would not be able to meet these targets? My last question is on the NDP. Now, on the NDP, we know the goals that have been set and also the SDG goals that have been set. We know it's for 2030. Are we on the right track as government in achieving the goals that have been set? Do we need to reevaluate the NDP? Do we need to re-strategize and perhaps look at whether what has been put in the NDP is realistic, is it attainable, and are departments meeting the constitutional mandate in ensuring that we're able to meet those targets? The last one, sorry, Chairperson, I know I said last one, was on service delivery. And I think this is very important. This department also has a role to ensure that departments efficiently and effectively deliver on service delivery. The biggest cry of South Africans is based on service delivery. If we can get that right, I think we would be able to speak towards alleviating poverty, would be able to speak towards empowering the lives of millions, would actually restore the dignity of many South Africans, and would see our townships and rural economies thriving. But because in our townships and rurals, we're not getting service delivery, what is the plan of this department in terms of its recommendation to the relevant departments in ensuring that there's adequate service delivery? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chauke. Honorable Apiri.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. Greetings to honorable members and colleagues on the platform. Chair, one will start by maybe just raising some of the observation of the performance of the department as and when we were listening to the presentation. When you check, and maybe in addition to the concerns as raised by honorable members, when you check the department's performance, it's largely based on assessment reports without measurement of outcomes of key policy priorities. And that in itself, Chair, weakens the ability of the department to effect its mandate. Which, Chair, one will then add that to say you under this weakness find the accounting officers not submitting their PMDs, and we say the department must have teeth, and it doesn't have to can really do with this non-compliance. But then, Chair, as you said, as and when we raise concerns, we must as well come up with solutions or recommendations. With that, Chair, I am recommending that all the officers who did not submit their PMDs must account to their respective committees, and the department must submit a report on compliance by the end of February 2026. We understand that from here, the department will sit down and come up with an action plan which will deal with all the irregularities that AG has raised. And with that, Chair, I would like to submit my recommendation that all those officers whom did not submit, and they know they are the accounting officers, they are PMDs, they should submit that to their committees, and the department should come and submit a report to us by the end of February. Another observation, Chair, is that the National Planning Commission does not enough capability or capacity to can assist the department to ensure that it does its work in terms of the policy making. Hence we are now complaining that the department does not have the teeth, and the department speaks of the white paper, which we think is going to take long, and things are not getting well as expected. And I am thinking, Chair, that maybe we recommend that National Planning Commission be funded as and when the department prioritize its budget to make sure that it strengthens the capability of the National Planning Policy Commission. Chair, I just want to check with the department that in addition to the submission of financial interest by all designated employees, does it consider introducing lifestyle audit for this staff, particularly those within the supply chain management and finance value chain of procurement and payments? Does it really consider lifestyle audit so that we are able to pick up, or the department is able to pick up whatever irregularities or whatever wrong things even before it can be picked by the public out there, out of witnessing the lifestyle of our public servants? Chair, the other question is that the Auditor General has highlighted a weakness of the department not having legislative authority, which I've already raised in relation to its recommendation for strategic plans and annual performance plan. This, Chair, according to me, is a critical aspect of institutionalizing the MTDP. And I want to check what the percentage rate of compliance with recommendations from the department and the AG of the plans of the department. I rest my case there, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Apshiri. Honorable Telezi.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to DM and the team and the colleagues in the House. Most of what I wanted to raise has been raised, Chair. I won't waste time with that. The only observation maybe is that, you know, the department left the runway some time ago, and it's in flight as far as as we are all concerned. I've not been aware of that clear definition of the headwinds that they are experiencing, what is happening with them, and what exactly is the time horizon of arrival at the destination in terms of the achievement of what they set out to achieve. I think that might be very helpful. I've not heard this being pronounced by themselves. Yes, I've heard them pointing out the achievements, 85% of this and all that, but I think that might be very important when you talk about, for instance, that we must also come with solutions. I think that this department was not born yesterday, as I've just said. It left the runway some time ago. Now, the second thing that I wanted to know is that they said they are working on the dashboard. This is going to be very helpful, as we've seen in other committees. Can they give us a time horizon of the dashboard? When will it be available? Because it will help us a lot. And thirdly, Chair, okay, this one has been covered. Thirdly, Chair, is I think it might be very helpful for us as this department, as coming from this department, just to see, or they share with us, for lack of a better term, a dossier of consequence management across the departments, starting with themselves, but more importantly, because they are a traffic cop department in terms of making sure that performance happens. And I think it's regrettable that something like regression is a word that is used to describe this department of all. I think it's very, very tough for this department to falter in any way whatsoever. So from my point of view, I think that it might be very helpful to see, give us good examples of consequence management which they've implemented themselves and also across the other departments. I will rest there, Chair. Those are the couple of areas I would like a response on.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosibutelezi. I'm not sure, Honorable Gama, your hand is still up. Honorable Chauke, also your hands is still up. Okay. No, I think, thank you very much, honorable members, with your questions and your comments to the report of this department. And you have raised a lot of questions, and we understand some of the questions that you have raised. You should have asked even yesterday to the Auditor General, and we then agreed that let's keep them and await for today's meeting to the department. And I think also in the main, the department must also respond to the recommendation by the Auditor General on the Department of Public Enterprise. And obvious, the transfer of functions to the line ministries, and obvious, the controls of the same DPME. And I think they will then respond to that. Honorable members, I will then allow the acting DG will then also identify DDGs that will respond to some of the questions that have been raised. And I will then, after, if the Deputy Minister want to respond to some of the issues, I'm handing over to yourself, Advocate Makobe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And let me take this opportunity to thank the honorable members for the questions and also the comments that they've made. Because those comments will help us in terms of improving, our work as a department and making sure that we are in agreement or in addendum in terms of where we need to go going forward. Starting with the questions from the Honorable Dunjwa, I take your point that if there are changes, we should in future communicate to the chairperson, so we take that. On the issue of the DPE, the challenge there was that firstly, the transfer of functions was done, and then the employees were then transferred later. And you will see, we will announce. I suggest, Honorable Chairperson, that maybe you allow us to table the annual report of DPE, which is ready. I think it will be tabled next week. And then we come and account properly in terms of what has happened there. But I think for now, I can say it's because, one, the functions were moved and the employees moved later. So we didn't have any control of the work that we had to do in terms of our APP. And you'll see when we table that annual report that we have actually performed very poorly. So that was a challenge. But secondly, that the employees then were transferred while the audit process was still in place. So it was like, fixing an aeroplane when it's in the sky, or fixing the tire when the car is moving. Because documents are moving, people are moving, and then there's an audit. We can't find papers. We can't find people to explain to the auditors. But as I say, we have learned very expensive lessons in that regard on how not to transfer functions and how not to close a department. But I would like to humbly ask that once we have tabled that annual report, we can then properly come and account. And I know it is not a good picture. It's not a picture that we are proud of. It could have been worse, audit report, but we tried our best under very difficult circumstances. In terms of Honorable Dunja, that we have regressed on the quality of performance information, we accept that point, and we are saying we're going to fix it going forward, and more especially that we are a department that is responsible for the performance of the whole of government. We must lead by example. We cannot be found wanting on performance information. It's something that we said even in our strategic session and said this must be fixed, and we don't expect it to reoccur going forward. On the issue of the disclosure of interest, you have raised the concern there of the employees not disclosing, and we will take disciplinary actions against those employees so that we foster a culture of ethics within the organization, which is quite important for us. How many departments are inviting us? We can get the stats, but a lot of them, we go and make presentations in their strategic plans, and sometimes I feel for the colleagues because we don't really have the capacity, both at national, both provincial, municipal. There's really a lot of invitations for us to come and assist, especially on planning, on monitoring. Some of them are even asking for the dashboards that they can use in terms of the performance information. So we are quite busy really all around the provinces, and that's why it's important for us to capacitate the department to be able to do the work that we do. And the expectation, firstly from this honorable committee and also from the government department, is high on this department, and it is upon us to actually meet those expectations, and that is what we are doing, and that's why it's important that we capacitate ourselves. Honorable Mani, in terms of the portfolio, obviously the portfolio will include Brand SA and Stats SA, which are not within the portfolio of the DPME. But of course, we have regressed in terms of performance and in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So that is a point that we take. The 22 million of irregular expenditures is on DPE. It's not on DPME. We have regressed on the 61,000 on DPME, but the 22 2 million was with regard to DPE. So if we can separate the two, and as I suggest, we'll come separately on DPE because the report is not good, I must admit. The white paper, Honorable Mani, and let me put it on record, is on the planning, monitoring, and evaluation. There's no white paper on SOEs because the bill is before this portfolio committee, and the portfolio committee will deal with it as it deems fit. But the white paper that I'm talking about is on planning, monitoring, and evaluation. The bill that was developed, and I think Honorable Kama spoke about it, it was a bill on planning. And how we then integrate planning within government. But we saw an opportunity, and based on the issues that this committee has raised, that let us also include monitoring and evaluation, but also ensure that there is enforceability. Of course, now there is accountability to this parliament because you've got to hold these departments to account, even at cabinet. But we are saying we can go even deeper than that. And we are saying, let's develop the white paper and bring it to you in the next financial year. But we will also, because we understand how urgent this matter is, parallel to that, develop a bill. So it's the white paper and the bill being developed at the same time that we can present to you and say, this is our thoughts. Is it in line with what you are thinking? So that there's a meeting of minds between yourselves and ourselves. So I want to really clarify that the white paper that we are developing, there is an aspect of planning because there was a planning bill, but there's no aspect of monitoring and evaluation. Those are the aspects that we want to integrate into this white paper. There is a draft legislation, but if you can look at it, it's only on planning. So we have to make sure that that legislation also includes monitoring and evaluation. So the issue of the bill, I think I've dealt with it. My performance agreement is actually finalized. I'll load it this afternoon into the system to make sure that I also lead by example and I don't say other acting HODs and DGs don't conclude their performance agreement. And while myself I don't do it, I have to lead by example. And I take your point quite seriously, and I'll make sure that I load it this afternoon. Mr. Martins, you'll deal with the issues of budget, linking performance indicators to the budget. I think the issue of the performance of agreement, I've dealt with it. Honorable from Honorable Kumbanga, Honorable Gama, the issue of the bill, I think I've explained it in detail. Lindsay will deal with the issue of the MTDP. And I think with regard to the SOEs, we are saying we're doing a self-assessment. Firstly, of the government departments, whether they've got the necessary capacity to be able to exercise the shareholder oversight. But we also look at the governance processes of the SOEs through that self-assessment process, and then we produce a report. And normally we actually present that report to the portfolio committee, which we can do upon the request of the portfolio committee. Honorable Chauke, the systems that we are using, as we are saying, we're going to be moving into the electronic systems and developing the systems and the dashboards that I've explained as I was presenting. And we are working together with CETA because we've got to work within CETA, but we are also trying to leverage on the relationship with other partners who can help us, given the size of our budget, that can help us to do what we want to do. And indeed, we do comply with the Equity Act in that regard. You said we must make sure that what we are reporting here is in line with the live realities on the ground. We've got frontline monitoring, and the purpose of that branch is to do that, to go to the ground and make sure that we don't only do the reports that don't take into cognizance the realities on the ground, so that we are able to make sure that the information is accurate, but we've got our finger on the pulse. I think maybe let me also deal with the issue of the vacancies. The DDGs and the DG1. The DDG Corporate Services has been advertised, but the other DDGs positions will be advertised once we have reviewed our structure. It did indicate that we are reviewing a structure to make sure that it responds to the realities and the expectations that people are having on this particular department. So once that is done, it's going to be advertised. The DG position will be advertised shortly. That process is continuing. I think think in the next 2 weeks we should be able to have that advertised so that there is stability in the executive management team. Mr. Martin, you will deal with the issue of the 2030 NDP. On the submission, by the recommendations by Honorable Piri, we will take into consideration that recommendation for those that we have not submitted their performance agreement, that they must be reported to their portfolio committees, and that we must make a report of those that have not complied. The white paper will not take long, and I've told the colleagues that we shouldn't take long, and that's why I'm saying in the next year we should be able to come and present to you both the white paper and the indicative bill. But we want to also do a proper job. We don't want to come here and give you a shady document. So we want to make sure that we bring quality to you in terms of the work we do. The funding of the NPC is an issue that we would look at going forward as we then continue to do our budget going forward. Indeed, the dashboard will be very helpful, and we believe in the next year we should be able to finish this dashboard and be able to launch it and then present it to the portfolio committee. Consequences management across all departments, we will look at that and then develop a report as requested. So I'll ask the DDGs to come in on the issues that I have not responded to, so that we can then fully respond to the questions of the honorable members. I see Mashamba, your hand is up, and then the other DDGs can come in, Lindsay and Afshat and CFO. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will respond to 2 questions. The one question is around the National Development Plan as to where are we as a country. I think the focus of the presentation that we were doing today is about the annual report of the department and then reporting against the key performance indicators that are outlined in the APP. So hence, in many places, it's about reports that have been delivered. But then it's important, rightly so, that the honorable members of the committee are requesting about when does the department report about what is happening on the ground. That happens when we present specific reports on certain things. For example, the development indicators that we presented to the committee last month provided an indication of progress on the country in relation to the National Development Plan. Part of what we reported there is that we assessed about 85 indicators, of which we indicated that 15% of them were on track to meet their targets by 2030. And about 31% or 36% of those showed promising progress and 48% unlikely to achieve. That is what has been the assessment of the progress on NDP. But besides, this is just used as an example of how we report about and then about what is actually happening on the content. There's other sets of reports that look into different things. For example, when we ended that meeting, we recommended that to the committee that at an appropriate time, the committee invites the DPME to come and present its assessment of progress on implementation of the medium-term development plan, which will go into detail of sectors, various sectors in terms of what is now the progress in line with the MTDP priority areas. That will give a sense of what's happening on the ground. Various reports on the frontline monitoring that the department does will give a deeper sense of specific areas where DPME has gone out to assess feedback from citizens on specific service delivery areas. So if DPME can be given a chance to invite it to the committee, that detail will also be presented there. I think this question was asked by Honorable Gama and Honorable Mani, and to an extent by Honorable Chauke. Now, the question asked by Honorable Buthelezi around the timeframes for the dashboard. For the dashboard, there are various dashboards that the department has. In the previous presentation, interaction with the committee, we demonstrated a dashboard that shows the spatial analysis of where things are actually happening across the country. We are developing a dashboard to report on medium-term development plan, whose timeframes are as follows. In this quarter, the third quarter of government department, we are piloting what has been developed. Then in the fourth quarter, some of the functionalities will have been sorted out to an extent that will be at an advanced stage of the piloting to make sure that everything works well before we deploy it publicly. So that is what is happening at the moment with regard to that dashboard on MTDP integrated reporting system. Otherwise, the dashboard on the development indicators already accessible. We are hosting it together in a collaborative platform called the National Policy Data Observatory, which we are hosting together with the CSIR, Statistics South Africa, and other organizations, which can show at any point where things are relating to various key performance indicators in the National Development Plan. Thank you very much.
Chair, it's Lindsay Martin, maybe through you.
Yeah.
I can also respond to some of the issues.
Yes, Lindsay.
Thank you. So maybe let me just start with the planning and budgeting issues, which were raised as well. So, firstly, apart from the budget prioritization framework, which we develop and use as an input into the budget process, and we consult with a National Treasury as part of that, and we then provide inputs when they are discussing budget recommendations in the function groups and the Technical Budget Committee. Based on those engagements, then the Technical Budget Committee makes its final recommendations to the Ministers' Committee on the Budget. And then finally, Cabinet approves the budget before it's tabled. So, throughout that process, there's essentially the opportunities to align priorities. In terms of individual institutions, I think there was a question raised by Honourable Chauke about the performance information. So the annual performance plans of departments at the moment, they do link performance programs to budget programs. So both sets of information are in the APPs, and then also the estimates of national expenditure also include both the expenditure programs and the performance programs. The one area that is a gap, which we will have to address maybe on the system side, is that the basic accounting system on Treasury side and the MTDP reporting system that we're currently developing still remain as separate systems. So I suppose what we need to do as part of the reform that DDG Mashamba spoke about is also engaged with Treasury to say, can you then link financial information to the reporting information in the MTDP reporting system? But that reform work is underway. So that will then allow us to assess things like value for money and cost estimates against performance moving forward. Then just some reflections on the Planning Commission and the capacity issues. So, I mean, currently the way the Planning Commission is structured, it consists of part-time members with various expertise. And in fact, the National Planning Commission is one of the bigger commissions in government currently. I think the challenge relates into the officials that then provide support to the commission to do the actual research and work. So I mean, there is currently a process underway, as the acting DG explained, where we're reviewing the structure of DPME, which then also includes integrating the functions for long, medium, and short-term planning into one unit to leverage that capacity. That then also will include filling the vacancies to improve capacity for policymaking, planning, and coordination, in line with what the acting DG was saying. Once the structure is approved, then the posts can be advertised. So hopefully that will also be addressed as part of the process. And then finally, just reflecting on the National Development Plan, so quite correctly, I mean, the current NDP targets are to 2030. There is a process underway then to review and already update that. So a new NDP will have to be in place before the current NDP expires, which will then articulate a vision beyond 2030. The different components to that. So firstly, the current Planning Commission will make recommendations on what they think should be carried forward into a new NDP. There will also then be further engagement across society and government departments based on the diagnostic work that DPME already does, and say then, how do you course correct as part of a new NDP beyond 2030? So I suppose as that work unfolds, we can then also bring that back to the committee to reflect on it. But it's likely to be done within this term of government. Thank you, members. Thanks, DG.
Ms. Ford, do you need to add or any other DDG before we then hand it back to the chairperson? I don't see any
maybe.
other. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes. Can I make the input, acting DG?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thanks, honourable members. Maybe just to emphasize on the issues that have been raised by honourable members. Maybe just on the issues of APP and departments compliance versus development. It's something that we have observed as DPME, because you are responsible for the annual performance plan assessment. And we were very frank even to the president when we appeared before the president on the medium-term development plan progress. But I know that the principal will say, what are you doing about it? Because we know that and it goes back to what one of the honorable members who said, yes, you could be good and be 90%, but you can't see that on the ground. So what are you doing about it? And I know that as part of the program of action, we have mandated the planning coordination that they must come up with a program of action to address that issue, because we'll forever have good performance on paper, everything is green, but on the ground there's no correlation. And we know that there's a part of compliance which is very important, because we are public servants, we deal with funds, there must be an accountability on governance, but also there must be a part of development. And maybe Lindsay will just elaborate, because you said we need a program of action, and one of the program of action, there's that relationship that is happening between DPME, HESA, DPSA, and National Treasury, just to deal with that issue, because we know that even South Africans are saying probably we don't even see what the government is doing. It means our planning, it's not correct. Hence, we are trying to harmonize the compliance and developmental agenda. I thought, let me just emphasize on that one. Then maybe the issue that have been raised by honorable members on the issues of performance of DGs, it's a very critical point. In a sense that because we are responsible for that, I had mandated my team to say, we can't just be happy. Let's conduct an analysis. Let's understand who are these DGs who are not signing their performance, and maybe even the assessment is not conducted. We've managed to analyze different departments, and then we had requested to DG Baleni, because she's a DG of DGs, to sign a letter that mandates us to have a meeting with different departments. And our view was that because we are mindful that the performance agreement, it is an agreement between the minister and the DGs. So we've been having meetings with the chief of staff of those departments that are not signing or maybe that are not assessing. We met with, would say, chief of staff of the minister, would meet with the DTG's corporate services, because our view is that performance, and you can't have an accounting office who does not have a performance agreement, because you need to live by example. So the DTG corporate services are part of that session, and the ODG heads, so that there's an accountability to say, we are ahead of the DG. What are you saying when your DG is not signing the agreement? So I thought, let me just explain that this is the process that we have been involved. And as you engage with different departments, you get different reasons. Some they will say, for example, we have sent everything to the minister's office. I'm just making an example. It is the minister who has not responded. Some they will say, minister has made some input, but the OTG, they didn't incorporate the input. Some they'll say we need a training. We are just chief of staff. For example, I remember there was one chief of staff from health where the person is just a medical doctor. Now she's expected to deal with the performance, and the performance is a specialized kind of, and I know that from TPME we've been training, but I think we have taken a stance so that if there's any reshuffling, because we anticipate that there could be changes in the leadership in terms of the chief of staff and all that, let's keep on training. But also what we have done, some of the ministers were saying we are not much privy about the performance. We have allocated, and CFO is here, we have allocated budget. We are in collaboration with the NSG, where we are finalizing the manuals. We'll be training the critical staff in the political office, in the corporate services, and the ministers on the performance management. And what we have observed after we've engaged with different departments, there's a slight improvement in terms, because some will say, yes, we know that we didn't submit. How can we regularize? Then we'll advise them, this is how you need to do. So I thought, let me just respond, but we have taken notes that we need to come, we can come in Feb, so that we can take principals into confidence in terms of our work. But also let me indicate that based on the NMOC structure, the team that reports to me on performance, they are migrating to the office of the DG, that is DG Baleni. We are working on that process. We are working on the migration and the change management. So they'll be reporting in the office of DG Baleni, and we anticipate that there'll be an acceleration in terms of performance management. We are willing to come and respond on the issues of performance, so that the principal must know where we are, and we make some comments. I think the other issue that have been raised, the regression, well, I think it's true, but we need to do something about it, because when you look at the TPME for the past many years, they used to get a clean audit, and this regression for it is a worrying factor. I think we really need to do about it. But maybe the other issue, which I know that Honorable Manu, you have raised the issue of maybe, for example, the state of governance, which is true, because I think we need to understand why the department was established. It's very clear. But maybe I get an opportunity, maybe just to respond, just to be in detail, but even in particular, the water, because I know as a department, we're very instrumental, because in terms of dealing with the water, we know that we had 2 mayors, and that has since been involved. There was an attachment of the equitable share where to intervene, and the SARS, had to deal with that, and now employees are getting their salaries, there's a renegotiation. So all what I'm trying to say, there's so much that we are doing. I think maybe we'd appreciate that. Maybe we could come and say, maybe just tell us about this about what is your responsibility? Because even the section 1397, when we went in the Tobota, And that's the research that we've conducted. And people will say, we need the 1397. And when you wrote a report to the minister, we have reflected in terms of what people of the Sobota want. So there's work that is happening behind the scene. Maybe would appreciate just to tell the honorable members in detail in terms of our work. I think even including presidential hotline, because we are using the same methodology where we analyze who's not responding, because we know that behind the numbers, there are people. And then we engage with different provinces, we engage with different departments, and then you see a slight improvement. But I think the biggest challenge that I have raised before, as you engage with those that are not resolving, those who are resolving, they regress. So we're trying to find a harmonization to say, much as we deal with those who are not improving, but also those who are improving, we need to make sure that there's a consequences management. So those are my comments, honorable members and colleagues and DM. Thanks.
Honorable Chairperson, can I take DDG Mglalose, just I think as the last person to make an input? Mglalose.
And we can't hear Mglalose.
Akele, we can't hear you. He seems to have... Okay, it's fine, Chair. He seems to have problems with the system.
No, thank you very much, Acting DG. I think there is a question that have been raised by 3 honorable members, especially the report from the Auditor General. And I will wish that the CFO will respond to that question. The irregular expenditure of this department is 22 million. And also the notes by the AG was that the reason for the irregular expenditure not dealt with was investigated and awaiting condonment. I think the CFO must respond to this question. We want to understand the nature of irregular expenditure and the reasons for condonment, the consequences thereof. And what will be the preventative measures, and the financial implications, because 22 million, it's a huge money. So I so wish that the CFO can respond to that question, because it has been raised by almost 3 honorable members in this platform. There's also another follow-up question by Honorable Manu. When did the DG of DG's dispensation start? Does this mean DG report to another DG, not their line ministers? And I see also now the hand of Honorable Montana is back from the Portfolio Committee of Transport, and I also see the hand of Honorable Dunjwa. Those are the 2 questions, the issue about the investigated and awaiting condonment, the nature of that, and the financial implications, and also the reason for condonment, and then the question by Honorable Mani. I'm taking your hand, Honorable Montana, followed by Honorable Dunjwa.
Thanks very much, and good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members. And of course, I submitted my apology. I was in the Department of Portfolio Committee on Transport. And I had, of course, the privilege to listen to the presentation at the committee yesterday by the Auditor General South Africa. You know, Chair, I just want to make one point, because I listened to the explanations given by the team from the department. And I realized that the more they explain, the more we have a problem. Because I think the team are not able to answer the central strategic question. What is the strength of this department? It's very small in size, and I've said that before. It's very small in size, but it's a department with the potential to change the way the whole of government works. And that statement sounds so easy, but in terms of your strategic outlook and the level at which you operate is very important. So we have a department that I don't think that understand what that means, particularly in terms of using their planning tools, most importantly, the evaluation report. You see, I hear a lot of things. Even, and I'm glad that one of the DDGs, I can't recall who it was, mentioned the fact that they'll come back and give us progress on the issues that are coming, or for example, with the medium-term development plan. You know, the key development indicators for the country is what actually this department is unable to deal with. They deal with it from a reporting point of view. We've said in the past that you are not looking at impact, you're not looking at changing the direction of the country. We even mentioned the fact that with your evaluation report, it's an opportunity to make sure that there are major shifts. When you go to cabinet with those reports, there are major shifts that are taking place. I mean, we can look at the report in terms of what the department, Stats SA, what is it called? The other agency that we have in our portfolio, Brand South Africa. But this department, that should be actually be 10% of what this department does. The bigger issues is energies. What is it that they are doing in respect of driving those and making sure that they influence the way government works? I hear a lot of things that we met with so-and-so, we briefed the president, we asked. Those things are irrelevant. Actually, they're process issues. And I think for me that unless if we change the frame, I mean, we are asking for that this department must have legislation to enforce. But even before, if you reach that level of legislation to be effective, what is a development strategy? And for example, if you look at the medium-term development plan, previously we've had huge failures. This department was in the forefront. It didn't even use its own evaluation report to influence the way government. It actually went to repeat almost the same thing which we see in the medium-term development plan. I'm just saying that, and I'm raising it as a criticism, but at the same time I'm raising it as counsel. You know, when we look at how we do things, if there's one department which is small in size, with a huge potential to change the way government works. I mean, I listened to when I joined the meeting, I think Honorable Apiri was speaking and raising some of the issues that are there. But all of them, they have to do with the fact that here's a department that could be very strategic, but not operating at that level. And I think the leadership, the acting DG and the DDGs should be playing the role to making sure that they raise that level to make sure that the department operates at that level. All these other technicalities, I hear about them. But I haven't heard anything on the development side. All our energies were directed at making sure. For example, if you've got Stats SA, we've got reports, for example, on unemployment. Okay, I asked, has this department, for example, gone to cabinet and say, change the numbers? This is a strategy around that. I look at this department and its influence, for example, on fiscal policy, on how resources are allocated. Totally zero, nil. So, Chair, I'm saying to you that yes, there are reports about the regular expenditure and all of those things. For me, before I deal with even this department in terms of its own narrow activities, I look at what it should be delivering for the country and for government at the strategic level. And I think that's probably its biggest weakness or its biggest failure. I don't want to take, but I think something that the should be doing that. Is it happening from where I sit? I don't think so. So, Chair, I came late. Maybe some of the issues were touched, but when I was listening to this, many explanations, you know, when you have many explanations and you even struggle to explain them, you must know that there's a problem. I can say, hey, maybe I should do things different. But if this department
itself can't be the mirror of what it wants to achieve. I don't see how it's going to change the way government works. Even if we tomorrow were to give it a legislation with more powers, I don't think that it will actually be able to use it because the thinking is not at the right level. And I think we should engage more. This is my final point, some of the reports, particularly I went through this department's evaluation report. I think it was given in respect of evaluation the government's key strategic projects. And the government was failing at all fronts. Strategic level. I'm not talking about whether you talk about food security, you talk about unemployment, all the key indicators that we regard as key strategic programs. And when I look at the medium-term development plan, I realize that the lessons that were drawn there are actually not even influencing the development direction that we should be taking. So I think that it won't change the way government works, and it's not giving us. I think Honorable Buthelezi, for me, has captured the point so well in his analogy about the runway and all of those things. So let's elevate the game. Chair, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Montana. Honorable Tunjwa.
Chair, there is a saying that is saying it is not the size of the ship that matters, but it is its movement. Maybe I'm raising this, listening to Comrade, I'm sorry, to Honorable Lucky, that maybe TPME, how it is doing this like those APP nendondo, yona imelba iyenza differently. You know that thing that he says, it is a small department, but it can, if it can come yona, I don't know, maybe there is a time that unfortunately I am an alternate. Maybe in this term, legacy report yakho Sihlalo, as you will be preparing for next term. My kichongwe, if we are concerned. In fact, we are, not if, we are concerned, and therefore that necessitates this department is to work differently. I'm raising this because
Hold on, Honorable Tunjwa. Zakele Mdlalose, close your mic. Please.
No, it is true, and with respect, I'm saying this with due respect. The department keep story. So that's why I say it is not the size of the ship that matters, it is its movement. And I have missed in the response the question that I asked, that can be pendulum, and if you pendulum, my apologies, Chair, which departments are responding do come to monitoring and evaluation department, and which are those that they grow themselves, and if no, why? I'm very interested in that, Chair, because I not unless I'm confused, I'm of the understanding that it is the role, among other things, which the department ithi xa imanye ibona kukho itoyitoyi too many protests. I'm just making an example. Higher education, it is higher education. I'm making an example. No. What is this? if there is a department yakwa human settlement ekuthiwa iyabuya imali ibuyela back to treasury bayibize, but no. What is this? I may be confused, I'm confused izinto, but I think my question, I don't remember. I've been trying to listen. I don't remember it being answered. If staff was the I don't have a problem. If it's confusing, I feel free to say you are confused. Honorable Member. Thank you, Chair.
There's a hand of Honorable Gama and Honorable Chauke.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Just in terms of way forward, we have met with the team in terms of a strategic plan. And one of the things that we've said is that the department is an influencing department that facilitates certain things without itself being the one that is responsible for the outcomes. But it can do a lot in terms of ensuring that the lived experiences of our people are those that are in line with whatever is being planned. And perhaps one of the things that the department should look at when it next reports, it has reported to us its first and second quarter indicators, is to try and see if it cannot leave the past in the past, so that it reports on the outcomes that this committee has directed it to do. So leave the old templates, start with the new templates, and maybe if you begin to change course and change direction, you will then be able to show us impact. You will hear that everybody here says, we hear all of these things that we are saying, but there is no demonstrable impact. As I said earlier, if you were coming from Mars and you had the presentation that was being put in place, you would think that the employment scenarios have been developed. You would think that the township economy is working very well, that small business, that the infrastructure is in place, etc., etc. But actually, it's not. So if you could just look at impact, I think it would assist. I'm really trying to give the department the kind of solutions that it needs to look at. Look at how best you can work to influence others to give you the outcomes that the country requires. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Gama. Honorable Chauke.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think for me, it would be about three things. The first one, I'm not sure if I did receive the response regarding compliance with the equity within the department. And I think that's quite critical for any department that comes and gives us the annual performance review or plan. If I can get a response to that, whether they are compliant with the equity and what is the segregated data of employment of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. The second one, Chairperson, and perhaps this would be a proposal through you, and if perhaps I'm overreaching or overstepping or might be misdirected, you will correct me, Chairperson. The possibility of this committee starting to work and draft a committee bill that gives this department more ability for them to ensure that they're able to meet their constitutional mandate, but also broaden their ability to ensure that they're able to hold the departments, government accountable, and accountable to this department in terms of what they are able to do. The reason why I'm asking this and I'm saying this, it seems as though this department sort of recommends, but after recommendation, it has no enforceable powers to ensure that there's implementation, and therefore it's unable to ensure that there's consequence management outside of itself as a department. And my understanding is that this department has a constitutional mandate to ensure the effectiveness and efficiency of government. My last one, Chairperson, I did not get the response in terms of the matrix tool or framework that is utilized currently by the department in terms of its own performance, but the performance of other departments. If I can get clarity and response on that, especially where we are seeing that there are departments that are not submitting completed reports. What does that look like? And like Honorable Donja has alluded to and asked again, perhaps we need an indication and where else they are reporting as a department. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I'm handing over to the acting DG, but I see the hand of the Deputy Minister.
No, I thought you forgotten me, Chair, so I'll follow the line.
Not at all, DM.
Okay, I'll come then after the DG if you like to give the DG the second bite.
Yes, just to report, to respond to some of the questions that have been raised.
And Chairperson, on the issue of the regular expenditure of that 22 million, as I had indicated, is for the DPE. It's not for DPME. And we're going to be tabling the annual report of DPE, where we'll go into the details of that irregular expenditures and also the condonement that we have asked for. So the CFO of the former DPE will then respond to that particular issue. But I'll give it to the CFO to respond to that. And Honorable Mani, we've got a DG presidency and the other DGs. We've got a FOSAT, which is a forum of DGs. Honorable Montana, we do realize that we need to raise the level, and that's one thing that we've been discussing as we were going through our APP, the new APP, to say we've got to raise the game, elevate the level. There's a lot of expectation on the department, and we must indeed meet that particular expectation. And as Honorable Gama says, we've got the power to influence other departments. We may not be responsible for implementing what we are recommending because the departments must implement themselves, but we've got the powers to influence, and we are very intentional that we have to focus on outcomes and impact. And I think maybe perhaps we should change the way we report to you so that we can really show the impact, because we take the point that what is important is what impact are we doing. Honorable Chauke, compliance with equity, we do comply as a department. We'll get those stats and send them to you. I don't have them offhand. As you say, I mean, as we develop one of the institutions is Parliament. As we develop some of these reports, Parliament can hold these departments to account through their portfolio committees, also in Cabinet. As we present the biannual reports, those ministers are held to account. So there is an accountability mechanism. We can strengthen that through legislation, but indeed there is that accountability mechanism. I'm not sure whether any DDGs wants to add, especially Honorable Dunja's question in terms of the departments. Of course, we intervene where there has to be intervention, but we make recommendations. But we can get a list of that and send it to the committee. I think that's about it. Yeah.
As one addition from my side, acting DG and honorable members and DM.
The CFO after you, thank you.
Yeah, there was a comment about which committees call the DPME. I think committees, we have always, when we present to different committees, indicated that any committee of parliament can call DPME to come and present about areas of interest, because we cover a whole wide range of things. So I can make examples here of the most recent ones. The Select Committee on Appropriations, we do interface with that committee. The Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, we have been interacting with that committee on the evaluation of food and nutrition security plan. And that evaluation has actually informed the development of a new plan for 2024 to 2029, which the Department of Agriculture is leading in terms of implementation, taking into account the lessons from evaluation and implementation. Then the Select Committee on Public Infrastructure, we interacted with that committee, I think it was 2 months ago, on the provision of accommodation program, which is run by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, who now are using the outcomes of an evaluation that we did collectively with the evidence from the Auditor General and from the Public Service Commission to come up with a turnaround on the accommodation of government offices. So that is just examples to demonstrate practically how the work of the department interfaces with various committees of parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will respond to the 3 questions. Firstly, the irregular expenditure, and then fruitless and wasteful, and the corrective action to be taken to avoid underspending. I think the ADG is confusing the issues of irregular expenditure with the DPE, because she has been looking at both annual reports. Honorable Mani, in this financial year, the department did not confirm and report irregular expenditure. As such, we're not misleading the committee. However, the AG is referring to the irregular expenditure of 22 million. That irregular expenditure of 22 million, it is about consequence management on it. It involves about 23 transactions which date back from 2022-23 financial year up to 2023-24, about 3 financial years. The Treasury regulation is clear on reporting on irregular expenditure. First, the irregular expenditure must be identified. It must be assessed, it must be determined, then it must be confirmed. These transactions have been confirmed. Then after that, after confirmation, consequence management must be taken. And after there is proof that consequence management has been implemented or taken, then the transactions can be condoned, either condoned where it's not a fault of an official, and if there's no element of fraud. If then there is fraud, then other steps have to be taken. Now, for the department, we have it as in our books, but we cannot take it out of our register and out of our annual report until from our side we see that there is indeed consequence management or there is recovery on this, and then we can then remove it from our books. The department is in the process of engaging external people that can assist us with the investigation or assessment of the transaction to determine the consequence management. So it is irregular expenditure that relates to previous financial years that has gone through the process, but it is just waiting proof of consequence management, and then thereafter it will be condoned and written off. In this financial year, there was no irregular expenditure. That is the financial year under review. The transaction that AG had identified as a finding as irregular expenditure, potential irregular expenditure, were in dispute with AG. That transaction has been taken to Treasury. But still, even then, no payment has been made under that transaction that would then qualify it to be reported or to be reported as being assessed as irregular. So once we have a response from Treasury, then the processes of determining the irregular of that transaction will then follow. And once payment has been effected on that transaction. Then on the issue of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, again, going back to Honorable Mani and all the members, the department doesn't take fruitless and wasteful expenditure lightly. We are one department that works on that. But however, at times, fruitless and wasteful expenditure is beyond the control of officials. For instance, today we were supposed to be in Cape Town. Some of us had already done the bookings. And when we were told that the meeting is virtual, we had to cancel those bookings. Now, the cancellation of those bookings, there is a certain portion of the amount that would be payable to the travel agent and sometimes to the third parties being the service providers, like sometimes the hotels, if we had already booked the hotels. And that amount that would have been paid for penalty of not of cancelling, it becomes fruitless and wasteful because it is expenditure that has been incurred in vain. Now, it is beyond the control of the officials. But in some instances, where there is proof and indication that officials didn't apply due diligence, then consequence management kicks in and officials are held accountable and they must account. And sometimes we even recover the money where it is proved that there was negligence on the part of officials. In terms of underspending, there was a question that what are we doing going forward to mitigate incurring again underspending. The department does monthly monitoring of the expenditure. And from that, we either reprioritize where we've got areas where the budget is not adequate. But in an area like COE, and you find that the processes of filling the posts and incurring the expenditure, sometimes it would be beyond the control of the department to complete the process on time. Hence, now we report it. But now, because we know, we learned from previous years mistakes or findings, because mainly even in the previous years, the underspending had been on COE. That is why now the process of recruitment has started as early as the second quarter, so that by the end of the third quarter, we have those posts filled. Thank you, Chairperson. I hope I've addressed everything.
Thank you very much, CFO. Honorable Mani.
Just a quick one, Chair. Firstly, I want to appreciate the explanation, but the point remains. And the point remains because I think we must make it clear there's a difference between, for instance, a situation where we've got misstatements in the financial statements of the organization, where maybe things were put in the wrong baskets and all of that. And when you rearrange that, everything is fine. That's one set of issues. But if you've got an irregular expenditure going over years and all of that, Firstly, I think we must be clear that it's called irregular expenditure because it's an expenditure that did not follow prescripts. Up until that matter is dealt with, you've got a monkey on your back. My objection is that we can't pretend that we are innocent this financial year when we've got a monkey on our back. If DPME was a department to be sold, that amount reflected there as irregular expenditure requiring condonation and all of that, that amount would have to be factored in on the price of the DPME that we are selling, that we have to discount that price because we've got that amount that is irregular, as it were. So I'm saying it's a misleading picture to say this year we're nice and clean. You are not nice and clean if you've got an outstanding condonation, because it means you've got an irregularity that is yet, it might not even be condoned. It's not automatic that it will be condoned. It could even lead to financial misconduct, as it were, when it's and the reason that is taking so long, it could very well be that the substantiveness of this and the substantiveness of the irregularity does not warrant a condonation, but warrants a misconduct. Somebody must be charged, and all of that. So it's quite a serious thing. So I don't want a situation where we sit here, we say, no, all that's going to happen is condonation. It's not automatic. And up until it's done, it's got to be reflected in our financials as something that is an outstanding business. That's the point I'm making. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Manye. DM.
Thank you, Chairperson, and also let me appreciate the comments made by members of the committee in engaging with the report. And from the onset, I want to say that there are quite a number of issues that has been raised here. Will indicate how we will deal with the issues that are raised. I accept that comments Honorable Chauke restated, I think, the issues around employment equity targets, and I do agree with the Honorable Member that these are non-negotiable. They are very important, I think, the department to comply to. And consequence management is also an integral part towards building an ethical and accountable state. So we have to deal with these issues, as Honorable Manye is saying. We need to be conditions that should not exist for any of some of these issues to arise. We need to strive for excellence in how we conduct business. And lifestyle audit cannot begin and end with politicians. I do agree with members' comments there that the recommendations and the recommendation that lifestyle audits must apply across the board, especially in supply chain and also in various other units in government. And that those that did not comply, we should be able to hold them accountable. The Chairperson, the annual report of the department is not a report of the whole of government, but a report of the performance of the department. But I think I agree with members when they say, does the report indicate strategic areas of work that it does comprehensively? Not. We will not highlighting them comprehensively without going into details on those issues. So the department is currently reviewing its annual performance plan for the following year. And one of the objectives is to ensure we factor in the limitations observed, particularly the recommendations made. And I must say, we take seriously the recommendations that are made in these discussions of this nature. The department will work closely with the National Planning Commission to harness their capacity to recalibrate various monitoring and evaluation systems to be more outcome-based than just a focus on outputs. This is an important work that we are starting to do to have purposeful engagements with the Planning Commission, developing some of these instruments in a sharper in a sharper way. So that this applies to the whole of government and the department. Measures or measurement of sectoral performance. We all know that they are reported by various departments as they are implementing agents, many of these government departments. Our role is to support the planning and monitor the outcomes. So the department is working with the National Treasury. We're working with National Treasury to enhance the linkage of planning and the budget. And the recent reports highlight progress in some of the areas. So the involvement of the department in the process of developing fiscal framework, it's important. The department produced a development indicator report, which the portfolio committee considered in the last term. Such report guides our support and recommendations. So we will ensure, I want to say without any doubt, we'll ensure that our recommendations are also elevated to the level of cabinet to ensure all departments follow through on areas that require changes. I think we do take counsel on a number of issues that members raised. The department has developed an MTDP with a results framework which depicts the targets of the government, and the PC should closely monitor the implementation of the MTDP, and the committee should prioritize scheduling a meeting to focus on the report. I think number of members, I think Honorable Montana raised the issue that we should focus more on strategic level, and the MTDP is one such strategic program of government that we should monitor closely, and also even perfect our reporting cycle to the committee from time to time. For instance, what do we do after we have done biannual reports at cabinet level to flag performance of government departments? How do we interface with the committee to deal with such issues? So on matters that are reported as an indicator, I recommend that the PC, the portfolio committee, should schedule sessions to consider the contents of these reports, so that at least we know from time to time we relate to these strategic questions. Members correctly saying that we should reflect the soul of government and the performance of government as DPME. But I think we should be very clear in terms of scheduling such kind of a meeting. And I will say, as a ministry, we will take forward the recommendations made by the portfolio committee as they strengthen our work as a department. We will look closely into the recommendations that the AG made and go individually on the issues, as our CFO has also tried to explain, go through these issues and ensure that there is an improvement on those areas. I do agree that the president always outlined various interventions in relation to economy. Not long ago, the president highlighted 10-point plan, and the significance of the department is clarify its role. What is his role in relation to 10-point plan? Which is not something new, but something that elevates MTDP areas of intervention. So how are we going to monitor and then to ensure that this plan is implemented across government, and even ensure even the engagement in terms with the private sector? So we will deal with this. We will deal with these issues, and I believe that all the recommendations that has been shared with us, we will relate to these issues. And I appreciate the comments that has been made here by many of the honorable members. And I agree that our role really should be positioning ourselves at the better place of influencing how government functions. I do take that as very constructive engagements out of this report. So we will be ready to engage on strategic areas of work because I believe this report are there, and it's a matter of on an ongoing basis, have regular interface with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, TM. And we note all the issues from your closing remarks, and also note what have been written by Honorable Mani in our platform. But honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, let me thank all of you, and also on behalf of this Portfolio Committee, extend our gratitude to the department led today by the Deputy Minister, Honorable Seiso Mohai, and the Acting DG, Advocate Makobe, and everyone else, honorable members. But safe to say, honorable members, the insight and updates of this department are invaluable to our oversight role. And we appreciate their hard work that goes with preparing these reports. And with all those words, honorable members, it's after 5 o'clock now. And thank you very much to all of you. And the meeting now is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Long live the chair.
Oh, long live the spirit of Ubuntu, long live.
Thank you, everybody.
Siyabulela.